In game 1 of the NBA Finals, we saw the Boston Celtics basically dominate the Dallas Mavericks throughout the entire game and take a 1-0 series lead in the NBA Finals. Now, clearly, if you watch the game during the third quarter, it got a little bit shaky for the Celtics, and Dallas was able to make a small little comeback. But for the most part, Boston had this game wrapped up from start to finish. I'm going to give you 5 takeaways from game 1 of the NBA Finals of what I think were important in those games and some X factors going into game 2. Starting off with number 1, Kristaps Porzingis is a mismatch on the floor right now. When Kristaps Porzingis came into this game off the bench, he made an immediate impact on offense and on defense. Now, clearly, Kristaps Porzingis has missed the entire playoffs run for the Boston Celtics throughout the entire year, dealing with a leg injury. But coming back into this game, you saw what made Kristaps Porzingis so important to the Boston Celtics with his ability to stretch the floor, his mismatches on other guards, and his defensive prowess that allows him to protect the paint with that entire Boston Celtics unit. Now, do I think that Kristaps Porzingis is going to keep up the level of scoring and the level of defense that he played in game 1? I would bet on no. But it's clear as day that the way the Mavericks were guarding the Celtics, Kristaps Porzingis was able to eat in the role where if he had a mismatch, all he had to do was a little jab step, pull up fade, and knock that down, which isn't a tough thing to do for his guy who's 7'3", and the next guy who's guarding you is not even over 7 feet tall. So that's clearly an issue that the Mavericks had to deal with going in that first half with Kristaps Porzingis cooking on offense and also not just on defense. Dallas dealt with that issue, especially trying to get to the basket and get some easy buckets. But Kristaps Porzingis was a huge factor in game 1 that ultimately blew up the lead for the Celtics to take a huge lead going into that second quarter and obviously carrying that over into the end of the game. My second takeaway is that Luka Doncic will get his matchups, but the others are going to need to come along with him for the ride. Now, clearly, if you looked at this game, for people who watched that third quarter, it looked like Luka was about to do what Luka does, take over that game. The team was down, I believe, 21 points at half, but they were able to cut it down to 8 points at one point in the third quarter, and you could just tell in the energy in Boston, in TD Garden, that Luka was ready to take over this game. Now, obviously, Boston was able to come back and go on a little run. The way that the Celtics are guarding Luka Doncic was primarily a switching concept where the big will switch on to Luka, and Luka will be able to feast on who he wants to, whether it be Horford, whether it be Derek White, either he wants to get to the basket. We know how good Luka can be on the offensive end, but the others, especially the role players, when we look at Gafford, Lively, PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., those guys who have those open threes that are gonna get those open shots from the gravity of Luka, they have to knock them down. The Mavericks only made 7 threes in game 1, and that's just not gonna cut it. And when you look at Kyrie, who I'll talk about again as well, Kyrie did not have a good game either. And I know for a fact that Luka Doncic is a player that can build a stat sheet, that can go to the basket and do what needs to be done. In game 1, you clearly saw it felt as if like Luka and others weren't just doing their job to help him carry this team and push them forward. So think about the Mavericks and how they're able to throw so many lobs and knock down corner threes. That was shut down. Boston did a great job shutting down the corner 3 and not even giving up any lobs to Lively or Gafford, which, you know, they make their money in the pick and roll. So the others in Dallas have to come out to play in game 2. My third takeaway, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have to stay assertive on offense consistently, and that's especially on Tatum. When I talk about these guys, you saw that when the Celtics made their runs and were eating on offense, it was when Jaylen Brown was attacking the paint, drawing fouls. When it was Jason Tatum, even though they were packing the paint, and I would even say they were playing too heavily on Jason Tatum was making the right reads on those drives and kicking out to guys who are open for 3 or can also create off the bounce and get to the basket. When the Boston Celtics are able to create with their 2 best stars getting downhill, that is the best version of Boston. The problem with Boston that I always have is that when they shoot too many threes, and in that third quarter, you clearly saw when those 2 guys weren't aggressive, especially getting to the paint, it became where are we getting our offense from? And that's what really helped the Mavericks get back into the game. But when you saw Jaylen Brown get to the basket, draw fouls on Derek Lively, when you saw Jason Tatum get back into, even if the shot isn't there and they're doubling me and blitzing me in the paint, finding the open guy, stuff like that is going to only help the Celtics offense stay consistent. But also, if the 3-point shot isn't going to hit one night, because honestly, they're a great 3-point shooting team. The Celtics did not shoot great from 3 last night, and they only made 16 threes. There's going to be a game where that shot may not fall, but you're going to need your 2 best offensive stars in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown being consistent on the offensive end and working those mismatches. You had Lively and Gafford sometimes sitting at the top of the key, and once he got past those guys, you clearly see weak side defender, whether it be PJ Washington or DJJ. Clearly, it's going to be tough for Tatum to finish over those guys, especially with a defender on his back and a defender in the paint. It's going to be important for him to stay consistent and stay aggressive, especially for how the Celtics play on offense. We'll see if they can continue doing that in game 3. My fourth takeaway, is Kyrie Irving. Now look, Kyrie Irving shot 6 for 19, which is just not going to cut it. I'm not going to sit up here and say the Boston fans were the biggest issue with him saying Kyrie sucks throughout the arena. Kyrie Irving, if he performs at this level, Dallas has zero shot of winning a single game in this series. Do I think he's going to continue this? Absolutely not. But the way they defended Kyrie Irving, especially with Jrue Holiday, I think Jrue Holiday did a great job defending Kyrie Irving, because when you look at it, Kyrie had 6 points in the first quarter and finished with 6 for the rest of the game. Like I said before, Kyrie Irving is too good of an offensive talent, especially next to Luka Doncic, to not perform to his level. And I think that with Kyrie Irving, obviously, as I said before, Luka Doncic is going to get his mismatches. He's going to get to the paint. He's going to draw fouls. Now it's on for the others to complete and do their job, whether it be Kyrie getting to the basket but also I think a lot of the shots Kyrie took were definitely tough shots. And I give credit to the Celtics defense. They did a really, really good job really limiting the others and Kyrie Irving on the Dallas Mavericks side. But going into game 2, Kyrie has to be much better, especially if they have a shot of stealing a game in Boston. And lastly, my 5th takeaway from this game in game 1, expect a lot of defensive coverages to look very different in game 2. Like I said before in this video, when you looked at Kristaps Porzingis, they're definitely gonna have to figure out ways to attack that mismatch. Dallas cannot allow 6'6" guards to be on KP. You're gonna have to respect what Kristaps Porzingis brings to the offensive end. If that means you have to lessen the coverage you have on Jason Tatum and make him be a scorer instead of a you know the word I'm trying to say, a facilitator, then you might have to do that just so you can take away that scoring and mismatch that the Boston Celtics have on that side of the court. When you also look at what the Celtics did on the Dallas side on defense, you look at how they were really just switching the pick and rolls whenever Luka Doncic was in the pick and roll. Ideally, Horford is a good defender, Derek White are good defenders, but Luka Doncic is too great of an offensive player to allow him to have those looks and mismatches on that side of the court. And I could see them doing what they did in the fourth quarter, where it became a point where whenever Luka Doncic came off that screen, they started blitzing him immediately. Now, obviously, you give up the roll man, which could be Gafford or Lively, would kick it out to a three-point shooter. I would not be surprised to see if Boston tries to see if they can get away with that and seeing if the others, like I said before, on the Maverick side, can do their job. So expect a lot of different defensive coverages going into game 2, especially with how players were performing in game 1. If I had to tell you right now my X factors going into game 2, clearly for Boston, Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum on the offensive end, I would say he had an okay game. I don't think it was great. I think it was better on defense. For him specifically, when the Boston Celtics need that offensive rhythm, he has to be better. To keep home court, he has to do his job. So I would say the X factor for Boston is clearly Jason Tatum. And for Dallas, clearly Kyrie Irving. If Kyrie Irving shoots this bad, they don't have a shot. Jason Kidd is going to draw up some different sets and different looks for him to get busier on offense so that he can be able to get more freedom. And if not more freedom, allow him to get easier looks, especially with Jrue Holiday clamping on him right now, because it was a really, really rough sight. But those are my 5 takeaways from game 1. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section what you felt about game 1 and what you think might happen in game 2. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, stay on beat.